Hello, buddy. Welcome back to the Tin Man Score channel. I'm your host, Jeffy Tin Man. Today, I put on a different mask because I haven't worn this fierce warrior mask of mine in a while. But this video that I'm reacting to from the Whispered Diaries channel now is 3 Scary Halloween Horror Stories Vol.2, and this is going to be the last one I'm reacting to today. So without further ado, I'm going to turn these lights off, move the camera up here for you guys, and let's get this reaction on the road and in the bag, shall we? Okay, here we go.
My friend Derek and I were both thrill seekers, and Halloween was the perfect excuse for us to go out and do something scary.
For sure.
We were both 18 at the time, and Halloween was in just a few days. Derek suggested that we go to an abandoned restaurant that was located just a few miles away. I'll admit, it wasn't one of those old, worn-down places, at least not from the outside. It was just a regular restaurant that shut down 3 or 4 years ago, and the property was never bought. So it gathered up garbage and had some broken windows and stuff like that.
Okay, those are the type of abandoned places I wouldn't mind going into that are still intact and ain't got no grass overgrowing around it. But you always got to be careful because you never know if squatters have broken in and they're now staying in a place like that. But that does sound like a fun thing to do on Halloween. But anyway, let's continue.
Anyways, on Halloween night, we packed a small drawstring bag with some flashlights, and then we drove over to the restaurant. We parked on the side of the street, a couple buildings away, and walked towards the front of the place. It definitely looked a lot creepier at night, and I could feel myself starting to get a little nervous. As we approached the door, we noticed a small bike leaning up against the front of the window. I kind of expected other groups of people to come here for the scary experience on Halloween, but I thought it was weird that there was only one bike. Derek tried opening the front door, but of course it was locked, so we made our way around the right side of the restaurant and found a small opened side door. We slowly walked in and found ourselves in the kitchen. It was completely trashed, with tons of bottles and cans scattered on the floor. We then turned right and moved into the back room, which had a few chairs and a table. Pretty dirty looking.
Okay, if that ain't signs of squatters, then I don't know what is. At this point, I'll be like tapping my friend and be like, I think someone is staying in here. Things might get hostile quick.
It was obvious that plenty of people had been here before us, probably using the restaurant as some sort of hideout or something.
Exactly.
We were in there for a few minutes, looking around at some of the graffiti on the walls, before we heard something coming from the front of the place. It sounded kind of like a small can rolling on the ground or something. Both of us looked at each other, a little shaken, but I guess that was the whole reason we went there in the first place. We stood there silently, listening for a minute, but we didn't hear anything else. I led the way, walking back through the kitchen and over to the doors that led into the main dining room. I tried to open it quietly, but it made way more noise than I was hoping. Derek followed me as I walked in and looked around the corner. Almost immediately, I noticed a can laying on the ground across the room. The way the dining room was set up, it was basically an L shape, so I could only see part of the room. Most of the tables were pushed over, and the chairs were broken. I was really shocked to see the place like this, as I had always thought it looked like just some regular, unsold, vacant building from the outside. Anyways, I started making my way down the room, and toward the other side, so I could look into the other part of the dining room.
Wait, do you hear that?
Very softly, I could hear what sounded like breathing. It was so quiet, it was hard to tell for sure though. I took a few more slow steps, and then I looked around the corner. I froze, seeing an old man sitting on a chair in front of a table in the back of the dining room. He was staring at the floor, breathing softly and not moving at all.
Okay, at that point, I'll be like backing up slowly and run out, because if that guy turns and sees you, you never know, he might get up and start chasing you.
Derek grabbed me and we both rushed out of there and ran back to our car.
Thank you.
I was so shaken up, I made Derek drive us back to his house. We spent the rest of Halloween night sitting in his room, just talking about what had happened and what we thought the guy was doing there. It's been a few years now, but every time I think about that situation and see the man sitting there, it still scares the shit out of me, and I have no idea what he was doing in that place alone.
He's probably homeless, but he's a little bit mentally insane. So you guys did the right thing in bolting out of there when you did. I would have still called the authorities on him, because if he's there by himself, just rocking back and forth, staring at the floor, something ain't right. He needs to be taken to a mental hospital. But I'm just glad they got out of there with their lives intact, and they're more wiser about going into abandoned buildings again, because you never know. You might run into more creepy people like this guy. But anyway, let's get to story number 2, shall we?
Halloween has always been one of my favorite holidays ever since I was a kid. I just enjoy the whole idea of spooky season and watching horror movies and everything.
Me too.
Anyways, this happened last year when I was 22 and lived in a small one-story home with my roommate Alex. It was Halloween night, around 9 p.m., and all the kids had pretty much finished trick-or-treating, so I put the candy away and turned off all the lights. Then we both sat down to watch some horror movies. We finished the whole movie, and I had Alex find us another one to watch while I went into the kitchen to grab some snacks. On my way into the kitchen, I thought I saw something move by the sliding glass door that led into the backyard. It startled me for a second, and I walked closer to the door, but I didn't see anything else. So I checked to make sure it was locked, and then I went to grab a bag of popcorn and made my way back to the couch. Just as Alex started the movie, we both heard a thud from the backyard. We looked at each other and both went to the kitchen and over to the back door. I turned on the back porch light and then slid the door open and peeked my head out. Our yard was small and it had a fence around it, so it would have been pretty easy to see if someone was there.
Okay, first of all, like he said earlier, I love the spooky season, Halloween as well. You guys probably could tell by this point because I collect Halloween masks and I like scary slasher movies to watch on Halloween night. But if you hear a thud outside in your backyard and you turn on the back porch lights and open up the door to peek outside and you don't see nobody, close the door immediately, because you never know, somebody might spring up out of nowhere and just start charging towards the door to open it all the way and force themselves in. I don't know if that's going to happen here, so let's just continue and find out, shall we?
But I didn't see anything. We both just assumed it must have been a neighbor, and I closed the door and we continued the movie. At some point midway through, Alex got up to grab some water, and a few seconds later, I heard him whisper to me from the other room.
Dude, someone's here.
I could hear the genuine fear in his voice, and I immediately got a little scared too. I made my way over to him and asked what he saw, and he told me that as soon as he came into the kitchen, he saw a man run past the sliding door from outside. Although still creeped out, I told him it had to be just some stupid Halloween prank. I think part of me was just saying that to try and make myself feel better too.
I know you're trying to make yourself feel better thinking that it's a Halloween prank, but I doubt it. Somebody was literally trying to find a way to get in, but once he saw that there was people in the house, he bolted. That's where you heard a big thud. At this point, I'll be like, call the police.
But it didn't work for very long. Only moments later, the front doorbell rang. I led the way, and Alex followed behind me as I walked over to the door and looked out the people. I saw a man in a white mask and dark clothing standing on the porch. I could see he was holding a pillowcase too, and it looked pretty full, as if he had a bunch of candy in it. He was just staring at the door, not even moving or looking around. I honestly didn't know what to do, so I let Alex look, and then we both decided to just ignore him and see if he leaves. We waited for a few minutes on the couch, pretty much just sitting in silence, trying to listen for anything. Then I got up and looked again, and the man was gone, but he left his pillowcase on the porch, still full.
Let's just call the cops. Something doesn't feel right about this.
Exactly, call the cops. He's probably setting a trap for you to open up the door, and then he pops out of nowhere and starts charging at the door. But that'd be creepy for sure, seeing a man in all black wearing a white mask just staring at the door with a pillowcase. And I hope it's full of candy instead of like any weapons or a venomous snake.
I agreed with him, and we went over to get my phone from the couch. But as I walked through the hallway, I saw the man standing with his mask against the sliding door in our backyard. I yelled for Alex, and we both ran to my bedroom and locked ourselves in. Alex pulled his phone out and called 911, while I moved a dresser in front of the door just in case. We were both freaking out, and I didn't want to take any risks. Only moments later, the guy started banging on our window, and I could hear him trying to open it from the outside. We had only lived there for a few months, and I honestly had no idea if the windows were even locked or not, as neither of us have ever touched them. Alex pulled the curtain back, and the man ran away. Luckily, the windows were locked. We waited in my room for almost 15 minutes before the police showed up. The man had already run off, I guess, but when we let the cops in, we noticed the pillowcase was still on the porch. One of the officers slowly opened it and checked inside. Then he grabbed it and poured it out. It was just a bunch of leaves and small sticks. The officer guessed that it was probably just some trick to try and get us to open the door so he could force his way in. With nothing really to go off of, though, they ended up leaving after taking a quick look around and not seeing anything. We were still shaken by the incident, but nothing else happened the rest of the night or any day afterwards. We still ended up moving out a few months later, though, as we didn't feel very safe in the house after that incident.
Which I wouldn't blame you for doing that, because I would have done the same thing as well. But that guy probably was quick enough to think that you were going to call the cops after you saw him at both the front and back door, that he decided to hightail it out of there. It might have been a harmless prank, but that guy took it way too far. If not, that guy was probably planning on forcing himself in somehow. Either they opened the door for him or he tries to get that sliding door open. But then what he would do afterwards, I don't know. Rob or beat the crap out of him for no reason. I don't know. I'm glad they didn't do none of that and just hightail it out of there. But I hope the police have him and arrest him.
Every year, my town has a Halloween fair that opens up during the last week of October. It's basically just a bunch of Halloween-themed attractions like haunted houses and scary corn mazes.
That's cool.
My friends and I like to go there before we started trick-or-treating, just to get us into the Halloween mood. So just like every other year, we met up there around 5. It was pretty busy, which is expected on Halloween, but basically every attraction had a really long line that was not worth waiting in. We looked around for a bit, then realized that the only thing with a short line was the corn maze. Something always made me feel weird about being in a corn maze. I think it was the fact that you kind of always feel lost and lose a sense of direction after a while. Anyways, we waited in line for a few minutes, then entered the maze. They had a bunch of creepy scarecrows and other props set up, which definitely made it more enjoyable than a regular corn maze.
You see, I wouldn't mind doing this, but if there's people that are hired to like jump out at you, I can tell you one thing, I'll probably jump and start punching. Because I could barely handle being jump scared myself.
But after about 10 minutes, it got a little boring, and it felt as though we were just walking in circles. At one point, we crossed paths with some older guy in a scarecrow costume who just kind of walked past us without saying anything. And then a few minutes later, we crossed paths again. I thought it was part of the attraction at first, but I also thought it was weird that he didn't actually try to scare us. Then again, it would also be weird for a grown man to be walking around alone in a corn maze, too. Another 10 minutes went by before we finally found our way out. We checked one more time to see how long the other lines were, but ended up just leaving as we didn't want to miss out on trick-or-treating for standing in a line all night. The fair was in the center of my neighborhood, so it made it easy to just cross a couple of streets and then start going house to house for candy. We'd gone to probably 20 houses and had made our way down a whole street before one of my friends in the group stopped us as we were walking down the sidewalk.
Isn't that
We looked up and towards where he was looking. Sure enough, the man in the scarecrow costume was standing on the other side of the street from us. He wasn't looking at us, though. He was staring at the house that he was standing next to. We all thought it was pretty weird, and knew now that the guy was definitely not working for the fair.
Oh, you got that right, because if he is not at the fair while you guys are trick-or-treating, then something's off. I have a lot of red flags popping up in my head right now. I'll be like, should we call the cops? Because why would he be out this way? And if he's staring at somebody's house, he might be planning on breaking into it. He might start following you.
We skipped the next few houses to get some distance from the man, just in case. Then we continued our trick-or-treating as usual. Only a couple minutes later, we all saw the creepy scarecrow guy on the same side of the road as us, and walking towards us this time. He was only a few houses down from us, and by now we definitely knew that there was something wrong with this guy. We walked quickly down to the next intersection and turned left. From there, we ran as fast as we could to get to the next turn and made a right, hoping that he wouldn't have been able to see where we went. By now, we were all a little freaked out and really had no idea what this guy was trying to do, but it was definitely creepy. One of my friend's houses was just up ahead though, so we figured we could stay there for half an hour to make sure that he was gone, and then we could head back out. I'd say we were inside for 10 minutes before we heard a soft rustling sound coming from outside one of the windows in the room that we were in. We all looked at each other, terrified of what we'd see if we moved the curtain from the window. But then I got up slowly and made my way over, and I peeked behind the curtain. The man was standing just a few feet from the house, staring at the window with something in his hand. It looked like a hammer or a crowbar, but I backed away too quickly to fully comprehend what I saw. My friends knew exactly what the situation was, and we called 911 to report the guy for following us. Then my friend called his parents to let them know what was going on. It took a whole 5 minutes for the police to arrive, and during that time we didn't hear or see anything else. But as soon as the sirens were nearby, we all heard footsteps running away from the backyard. When the cops came up to the door, we explained in more detail what was going on, and they actually told us that there were multiple other reports of the guy in a scarecrow costume harassing people at the fair. We decided to just hang out at the house for the rest of the night, which really sucked because it kind of ruined our Halloween. But we all still had the feeling that that guy was somewhere not far, watching and waiting for us.
Yeah, that just proves my point right there that he ain't no worker at the fair, because no workers will be harassing people while they're having a good time there, and would not follow a random group of teenagers back to somebody's house. This guy clearly had an agenda to terrorize people and maybe break into somebody's house to either kidnap them or kill him. You never know. Thankfully, when the cops showed up, he ran off, and hopefully they will find him before he causes more harm. But something like that really does kill the mood for anybody on Halloween and not want to celebrate no more. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on those post notifications for more Whispered Diaries content like this. This has been another successful installment of the Tin Man's Core channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor, and I said that's a wrap, and that's day off.